Hello brothers and sisters, welcome to today's episode on Dangerous African Confessions HD. Today we have a story from our sister who is married to a prophet and wants to share with us some of the things her husband who is a prophet has done. We've brought to your confessions that marvels us, but I bet you've never heard this before. Let's get into the story and see why the husband wants to marry another woman, why their 2 children died, and why as a pastor who has another woman pregnant for him. She's lost her 2 children and she's about to lose her home too. As usual, our policy is that we don't mention names unless the sender asks us to do so. So, I've edited the names, locations to hide the identity. Without wasting much of your time, let's go and listen to the story.
I am a woman in my late 40s. I am married to a prophet of God, or better still, let me say who I thought was a prophet of God until now. I met my husband at a friend's wedding. He had also come as a guest, because, apparently, he knew the groom. I was a bridesmaid, since the bride was a very close friend of mine. In fact, this man was looking sweet and I liked him. Let me be honest with you. I like him from the word go. So, when he approached me, because I liked him, the chemistry was wild. We exchanged contact and he went back to be with his people. He never introduced himself to me as a pastor when he approached me. It was just a real vibe without these charismatic things and all that, which you see amongst pastors. Fast forward, we started talking and the vibe was there. He visited me a couple of times. He showered me with gifts and everything a lady will want to see in a man. I saw him to be that. So, when the day came and he proposed, I didn't think twice and I accepted. To me, he was gentle and loving. Who wouldn't want such a man? It was after his proposal that he told me he was actually a pastor who had his own church. He told me he was looking for a lady who is simple but loving and can handle meetings with pastor and executives when he is not around. Let me not bore you with all that went on, but even though I wasn't into the idea of marrying a pastor, I eventually gave in. And I became his wife after a nice marriage ceremony was done. Years into the marriage and the ministry. And God blessed us with 2 boys. Matthew and Joseph. Because of school, they were always in the boarding house. They come home only when they are on vacations. Things began to go rough for my Gabriel, my husband. The number of the congregation kept on dwindling. This became a very disturbing issue for him and myself. We will always go to God in prayer and ask Him for His mercies and favor towards the church. But things kept on going the same route. We found ourselves struggling to restore faith in the dwindling congregation. This was when things changed for the man I knew and fell in love with. I always will return home to find Gabriel sitting alone in his dimly lit study room, gazing at old photos of the church. This I always tried to remind him of how far God has brought him, and maybe this was just a test to see how far he can go for the Lord. Gabriel had always possessed an unwavering devotion to his congregation and the Lord. This I can say about him. But as the church was on the brink of collapse, that changed him completely. I tried talking to some pastor friends that we know, to talk to him. The thing they always say is that the Gabriel that they know will overcome any storm. For he is a warrior. But me being his wife, knew he was losing the fight. As a wife, I tried to encourage him, pray with him, pray alone for the church. In fact, I organized programs for the women fellowship and the youth like never before. All was my attempt to help revive the church. Gabriel one day told me that he was traveling to his hometown. I wanted to go with him in order to even see my in-laws. Since it had been long, I saw them. But he told me to stay back and conduct service on Sunday, because he would spend like a week or 2 over there. I agreed and packed his things for him. The day came and he left for the village just as he planned the journey. I never knew, desperation is what is making my husband travel. This traveling was to save his church. This decision is what will change everything in our lives for the worst. Gabriel returned just as he told me he would. Things were still the same. One day in the evening, when after we had finished eating, he told me something that I didn't catch it until now. He told me that the Lord is revealing something in pieces to him. He said these revelations are the things that will revive the church. And it is in different states of revelations. He further told me that when he gets the complete revelation, he will explain everything to me. As a good wife, I was very happy that, at least God is revealing to us the way to go. I went to bed feeling happy. And in fact, I even asked that we make love, which we did. I was just happy to hear the news. When the time had come, he asked me that if I can sacrifice anything that I own to God in order for him to manifest himself greatly in my life. I answered him that, yes, the Lord owns everything that I have, and if he wants me to give him, I will gladly go ahead with it. I even used Abraham and Isaac as a reference, saying that it was God that gave Isaac to Abraham, and the same God asks Abraham to sacrifice Isaac to him, which Abraham did not hesitate. So, anything that the Lord wants us to sacrifice, I am on board. I never knew my understanding of his question was different from the meaning that he had. He went on to say that God told him that we should make a sacrifice that will affect us greatly in order for him to also move mightily in our ministry. I asked him what he wanted us to sacrifice. He told me I should leave that one to him. He will tell me when the time is up so we know what to do. Days came, and it became weeks, but he said nothing about the sacrifice. I asked him, and he said he is gathering things for the sacrifice. I told him he should have told me about the things needed for the sacrifice. I made him aware I didn't like the idea of him not letting me in on the items. He expresses his apology and told me he promises to bring them when they are ready. So, I agreed to it. It's about a week after our last conversation on the sacrifice that he told me the time was up. One thing is that I knew my husband to be a genuine prophet of God. So, when he was telling me all this, I felt it was from God.
Please kindly subscribe, share and like our videos. Kindly hit the notification bell so you will be the first to get notification to our videos when we upload. Thank you, and let's get back to the story.
That is how he managed to lure me into taking part of the sacrifice without me knowing what I was doing. The items for the sacrifice were 3 sheep, 1 ewe, a female sheep, and the rest were lamb, baby sheep. Some white cloth, and the name of the church was written on a paper and was placed in a very different kind of anointing oil. He said I should be part of the sacrificing of the animals. The sacrifice was done on the compound of our church in the middle of the night around 1 a.m. When we finished with the slaughtering of the animals, I wasn't feeling right about it. So, I went to his office in the church and got myself a bottle of water from the fridge. When I returned, he had already set fire in the 2 lambs that were killed. The ewe, there was this hole that he asked the workers to dig for him. It was in this hole that he buried the ewe. There were these candles of different colors that were burnt on the paper that had the name of the church written on it. After everything was done, we returned home without anyone seeing us. The reason why nobody saw us was that he asked the watchman the day before to take a break and go home to rest. So, he made sure the place was free of people. This was to prevent people from talking. Like I said, even though I knew my husband to be a man of God, something wasn't right after we finished with the sacrifice. There was this voice always in my head saying, "What if everything that you've been told is a lie?" I was so much confused. So, I began asking him for explanations of the things that were done. Gabriel wasn't the man I knew anymore. He started getting angry anytime I will bring it up for him to explain things to me. This was a man who will go all lengths to explain things that I do not understand to me. It was like he was possessed whenever I asked about the sacrifice. Because of this, I decided not to bring it up again, but we rather pray to God for answers. Gabriel was totally different now. He sometimes will return home without greeting me. He will just walk straight to the shower, and when done with his bath, straight he will go to bed. When you ask him why the sudden change, he will tell you he wants to be alone. I received a phone call from the authorities of the children's school that Joseph was seriously ill and had been taken to the school hospital. I rushed to the school and saw my son in a bad state on the hospital bed. I called Gabriel, my husband, to tell him about the situation, but he didn't answer any of the calls that I made. So, the doctor asked if we have a family doctor, of which yes we did. He told me there was nothing medically wrong with him, but Joseph kept hold onto his stomach complaining. So, I called our family doctor, who said we should bring Joseph over to his hospital. The school kindly gave us an ambulance to take him. All this while, I was calling Gabriel and he was not answering his calls. We got to the hospital and our doctor also examined him and said the same thing, that nothing medically was wrong with him. He also tried calling Gabriel but didn't answer. So, there is this pastor friend that I know. I called him and explained the situation to him. He said he was coming over immediately. When Prophet Mike entered the ward and saw Joseph, he was unusually quiet. He shook his head and told me to come with him. We came out and he asked where my husband was. I told him everything and he smiled. He told me, Joseph will not make it. As soon as he said that to me, I rushed back to the hospital. Joseph held my hand and that of his brother. Joseph told me not to cry, for it wasn't my fault that he was leaving. He looked at his brother and smiled at him. He told his brother that, "Brother, my only brother, I will be waiting for you. Don't leave all alone." Right after Joseph said these things, he breathed his last breath. My son was gone like that. I lost it. I couldn't control myself. I shouted and Prophet Mike rushed in to get hold of me. He took me to his car, together with Matthew, and drove us back home. When we got home, Gabriel was lying down in one of the sofas, watching TV.
Our brothers and sisters do share with us their stories, not for sharing's sake, but they are meant for us who still do have chances, not to make these mistakes our brothers and sisters are making. Now, my sisters, please don't get into marriages just on the surface value of it. At least get to know the real man behind the mask before you agree to walk with him on the journey of marriage. Sometimes in the beginning of the relationship, the red flags show up, but sometimes because of money, love and affection, we look over on them, which later will become a huge problem for us in the marriage itself. Please let us be wise and vigilant. Thank you and stay safe till we meet again.